Turning this to that, episode 2, the apex. So people, welcome to the video. First things first is we're starting to cut up all the stock. So this right here is X6x3, and this is going to be used for the piers which the main apex will sit on. So these two piers are going to be sat on 2 brick piers. A lot of piers going on. Anyway, over to the trestle. So I've got the 6x6 posts on here. These are going to be the uprights on the 2 piers. So these will have a tenon on the end, and the 6x3 you just saw me cutting are going to have a mortise. And I'm just going to create basically a rectangle, which standing upright will give the height for the apex. Now back over to the chop saw. I'm just going to cut these 6x6 posts to length, and then get them ready to cut the shoulders for the tenons. I didn't actually mention, but during the design process, the client didn't want to have 2 6x6 posts on one side. So we've actually opted for 6x6 and one 6x3. The 6x3 will be bolted against the wall. It's good to keep things symmetrical. So with 3 being half of the 6, it just looks good from the side. So now tenon time. I'm just cutting all of the tenons, all of the shoulders for the tenons. So I'm just setting the depth up now. And then I'm going to go through, mark all of these and get cutting. Now all of my shoulders are cut, I'm going to make my way over to the bandsaw. I'm going to cut all of the tenons out now. So if you didn't know, oak hasn't a natural tannins in it. Unfortunately, with these tannins, it reacts with most metals. So you have to use stainless steel when working with oak. But the problem with stainless steel, it's so soft in comparison to other metals. So when you're using fixings, you have to really be careful that you get your pilot holes right. So now all my shoulders have been touched up with the rebate plane. I'll just go ahead and I'm going to mark out all of my mortise holes now. I'm actually going to do these by hand, so I'll be drilling holes all the way through, and then I'll just be chiselling the rectangle to make the shape. So I haven't actually mentioned, we've gone for air-dried oak, and the reason we went for air-dried instead of green oak is because with green oak it hasn't dried yet. So you often find with this sort of oak, when it dries it will crack, it will split, and it'll just be full of natural defects. So at least with the air dried, it's gone through all of that, and what you see is pretty much what you're going to get. Of course there's going to be some movement over time, but nothing substantial.
What the hell is even that?
Why I even wasted tape and time on that, I have no idea.
He's got to have a sword.
I'm sure all of you fellow woodworkers have had a King Arthur moment. Well, that was mine. So now time to just chisel out all of these mortises. Along with making your hands purple, the only problem with oak, it just blunts your tools so damn quick. Actually, I suppose it snaps your chisel handles as well now I come to think of it. So once this side's complete, I'll flip them over and repeat the process on the other side. So finally onto assembly. I'm just getting the columns made up now. I do need to touch these up with the rebate plane and just get the tenons in because they're a little bit too tight, so just shave them up and get everything perfect. Oh. Right, this is the main tie beam. I've got my first point marked, which is literally to the corner here, so that's all the meat I can cut to get a square edge. We worked it out. This is going to sit on the post 37.5 degrees, and then obviously the 2 rafters that come down onto this will be mortise and tenon in. So 37.5. I need to measure my width, which is 2,550. So I'm now just marking out the pitch of the roof using a digital gauge for this. We've gone for 32 degrees. The reason being, the customer sent me the building plan of his property and I was able to scale the pitch of his current roof. So at least because this is underneath, it's all going to look symmetrical if you look at it from the front of the house. Just squared those lines across. Now I'm just going to mark the back side, just using a rule from point to point, and I can just draw this, which is 2,118. So that's 2,018. That's 1 metre and 9 millimetre. 9. 3 pins, which could have 3 contact points on it. So I'm just going to set the radius centre on the 2 ends. You probably don't understand the thing I'm saying. Let's do 25mm up. So let's chuck a pin in there. You want to set the pin just a little bit in front, so when you nail it in, it will then be flush with your mark. Hold the centre, and that gives us an ever so slight curve. Because there's no real radius to this, I don't need to set up the Dremel heads, if you don't know what a Dremel head is. On one end of a stick, you have a pencil like so. On the other end of a stick, you just have a pin. You put that into your timber, you measure between that point and your pencil, and that'd be your radius. You should just drop the pin in and pivot it around. Everything else is going to be finishing at 150mm. So it'd be nice to have this curve, 150mm, and it all looks symmetrical and blends in then. So we measure up from here, 150. That's 100, lovely. When you're running a curve, obviously I want it to finish at 150mm. So I know that if you just put 150mm from that edge to there, it's then going to be under, because we're cutting all of this meat off. So just measure that, which gives us 8mm, and I know that I want it to finish 150. So if I just measure in line from where it is straight, square, and hits 158mm, then we know that is the point. My Weetabix this morning, mate.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea at this point. Okay, and that is my curve. So time to get this absolute unit cut out on the bandsaw. Honestly, this thing weighed a ton. I don't even know what the numbers are, but it was extremely heavy.
What are you doing?
Me? Just hanging around.
That was meant to be funny until I realised how similar our poses were. Anyway, back to the video. Currently cutting the tenons out. I'm using the Festool track saw for this just because they're quite long, so get these nice and accurate with the track. Now that the shoulders are cut, I'm going to cut to the shoulder line with a circular saw and just cut all of that excess meat off. for the rafters. I'm just using this offcut and it will help me transfer all of my marks. Get these cut to length, and then I can go back to the trestles, get everything marked out, and this is going to be the mortises for where my tenons are going to go. You know, when I do jobs like this, I really take things for granted. Just something that's so simple like a drill. Back in the day, imagine having to just chisel all of this out and get your depths. And I suppose the world wasn't as rushed back then, so things took as long as they took. Now everyone wants everything yesterday, which is always a struggle because you're trying to compete, even with pricing, I suppose. Everyone wants stuff done now. So now just using a scrap offcut of some, what is that, Elliot's plywood. I'm just going to make the templates for the 2 curved struts. These are going to be mortise and tenoned in as well. Now, due to me making quite a lot of gallows brackets, I do have a huge amount of templates, so it's quite easy to mark the curves. So I'm just going to use something I've already got. I did actually go through these a couple of times because I marked one out, as you'll see in a minute. I'll rub it out because it just looked awful. I wanted a bit of a steeper curve. So now taking the sanded template, I'm just going to put it onto the oak, mark around it, and it's very important that you add the tenons on. So I've cut this to the shoulder lines, so there isn't any tenons. And I have done it in the past before where, oh yeah, it's finished now, I'll just go and cut that out. You gotta start cutting it, and then all of a sudden you then have another piece of scrap wood. So I'm going to get these curves and struts cut out, and then once that's done, I'll be following pretty much the same procedure as what I've done for the tie beam in terms of the tenons. I'll be using the track saw, and then once I've track sawed the shoulders, I'll then be using the circular saw just to cut all the meat off. It seems to work really well, this method, so just flying through them. Finally, the main truss is together. Now, that last clip, I was just using the rafter I previously cut as a template. So now I'm just going to go through, cut all of the rafters, which will make up for the depth of the canopy. I'll get all of these cut, and then I need to cut the bird's mouths, which I'm doing here with the circular saw again, and then I just need to touch them up with the hand tool. So I'll continue this process on all 6 of the rafters, get all of these done, and then it'll be finally the time to sand the bottom side of the truss. So the sanding is finally done. Now I just need to shave the ends of the truss. I need to get these bottoms flat, reason being is because this is what's going to sit on the 2 columns. So I'll just get this done, and then onto the dowel. So I didn't actually film me doing any of the dowel work. I should have really, because it would have been a good part. But anyway, I'm then going to trim these. So I've allowed them to stick out 15mm. So I'm just using a 15mm packer and running the saw across that, just so all of them are the same length and is continuous. I'm then just going to touch the ends up with a little bit of sandpaper and put almost like a small chamfer on there. So now on to the final stages. I'm just going to sand, chamfer and get everything looking pretty. So I'm going to do this both on the supports and the truss. I set them, the chamfers are stop chamfers, and they'll be set 75mm from every end. I do also just run a 5mm chamfer across every edge, just for a little bit more detail. And now that is the truss complete. Bash.